I want to begin by lifting something off your chest. That tightness you feel around money. The small knot when the statement arrives. The silent arithmetic that runs in the background of even your good days. I want to loosen it. Because that tightness is not a sign that you have too little. It is not a sign that you were careless or foolish or behind. It is simply that no one ever sat you down and showed you a gentler way to hold what passes through your hands. That is not a failing. It was never taught. So let me show you how the old women of Okinawa hold it. Not a harder way, a lighter one. Imagine the same purse, the same pension, the same money coming in, and almost no fear living inside it. That is what these women seem to have. It comes down to a handful of habits they keep that so many women in the modern world were never shown. 7 of them. Stay with me to the 7th. Because the 7th is not a habit you do with your hands at all. It is one word, a way of seeing money, that I will not say until the very end. And once you hold it, the other 6 fall into place on their own. It is also, I think, why these women so rarely seem anxious about money, even at 90, even with very little. But before that, there is a 4th habit I would ask you to listen for especially. It will sound backward. It runs against everything thrift ever taught us. Because instead of telling you to save, it will ask you to spend. Sit with it anyway. You may be waiting for me to hand you a budget, a system of envelopes, a spreadsheet that scolds you each month. I have none of that. What these women understand is older and kinder than any system. Money is not an enemy to defeat, nor a master to serve. It moves through a life like water through a house, and the whole art is in how lightly you let it pass. Hold it too tightly, and the hand cramps. Chase more of it, and it runs through the fingers. These women learn to let it pass with an open hand. And an open hand, it turns out, is a calmer one to live with. The first thing they keep is a small book and a pencil, not an app, not a screen that pings. A plain paper book where each evening they write down what the day cost them, by hand, slowly. I learned this from a grandmother in Ogimi, the village they call simply the village of long life. Every night before bed, her granddaughter told me the old woman sits at the low table and writes the day's spending into a worn little book, the fish, the bus, a gift for a grandchild. She does it the way other people say their evening prayers, not scolding herself, only looking, without judgment, at where the day went. What she keeps is the seeing. What she refuses is the not knowing. Money that slips away in the dark, unwatched. The Japanese have a name for this little book, kakebo, the household ledger. A woman named Hani Motoko began it more than 100 years ago, so that an ordinary household could see its own life clearly, not to spend less for its own sake, to spend awake. And here is what the science seems to agree with. When researchers gathered dozens of studies on watching your own spending, simply tracking it, writing it down, they found the watching itself helped people spend a little less and save a little more. Money seen is money that behaves. It was never about denying yourself. It was about not letting the day disappear unseen. As the old woman might say, what you look at kindly, you no longer fear. So tonight, perhaps, write down what today cost. Only that. and notice how the knot loosens. We will need that steadiness for what comes next. The second thing they keep is the long life of things, the mended sleeve, the last of the rice, the jar washed and kept, nothing thrown out while it still has use left to give. There was an old monk near where I grew up who said a single word whenever something was wasted: matanai. I heard my own mother say it too, over a heel of bread, over water left running. Matanai. It is a small sound of sorrow for waste, for the unused life still inside a thing thrown away too soon. What they keep is the fullness of what they already own. What they refuse is the restlessness that always wants the newer one. You might think this is only thrift, the habit of people who lived through hard years. It is something warmer than thrift. Thrift is born of the fear of not having. Motainai is born of respect for what is. And researchers who studied people who chose a simpler way of living, fewer things used well, found that they tended to report more satisfaction with their lives, not less. The closet that is never full enough is a quiet kind of ache. The cup used for 40 years is a quiet kind of wealth. As the monk would say, to use a thing fully is to thank it. Keep what you have a little longer. Let it serve its whole life. The third thing they keep is spending on the gathering, never on the shelf. When these women open their purse, it tends to open for a shared table, a festival, a journey to see a grandchild, for a moment that happens once and never again. Far less often for a thing that will simply sit and gather dust. I remember a vendor at a market in Naha who had sold the same pickled vegetables for 50 years. She did not have much, but twice a year she closed her stall and spent what she had saved on the village festival, the food, the music, the gathering. I asked if she ever wished she had bought something lasting instead. She laughed and said the festival was the lasting thing. It lived in her, she said, long after any object would have broken. What she keeps is the memory of being together. What she refuses is the cupboard of things bought to fill an evening alone. The tea masters have a phrase for this: Ichigo Ichie, one time, one meeting, that a gathering will never come again exactly as it is, and so it is worth more than anything you could set on a shelf. And when researchers asked people to look back on their purchases, far more said an experience, a meal, a trip, a day shared, had made them happier than a possession had. The thing wears out. The evening together does not. As the vendor said, buy the gathering. It is the only thing that grows. The fourth thing they keep, and here is the one I asked you to wait for. They keep a little room to breathe, and to keep it, they are willing to do the backward thing. They are willing to spend money, to buy back their own time and their own peace. I know, we were taught the opposite. We were taught that the careful thing, the virtuous thing, is to do it all yourself, to never pay for what you could grind through alone. Let me tell you where that taught me wrong. For years, I carried every burden myself to save a few coins. I hauled the water. I mended what I could barely mend, and I was tired, short with the people I loved, with no morning left for the things that fed me. It was an old woman who set me right. She paid the neighbor's boy a coin to carry her water each day, and with the hour it gave back, She sat in her garden, content. She told me, "I am not buying water. I am buying back my morning." What she keeps is the breathing room. The Japanese call it yutori, a margin in the day, a slackness that is not laziness but space. What she refuses is the false thrift that saves a coin and spends a life. And research has found exactly this. People who used a little money to buy back their time, to hand off the task they dreaded, reported more satisfaction with their lives than those who spent the same money on another possession. The backward thing was the wise thing all along. A coin spent on your own peace is not a coin wasted. There, that is the one I asked you to hold. Sometimes the most careful thing you can do with money is to spend a little of it on yourself and breathe. The fifth thing they keep is a modest cushion, not a fortune, often very little. A set-aside no one sees, kept for one reason only, so that fear never has to sit down at the table with them. Let me tell you about a woman named Yasuko-san of Ogimi, 84. She did not have much, a small pension, a modest house. But each month, all her long life, she set a little aside, not for things. She told me she kept it for one reason, so that she would never, ever be a weight her daughter had to carry. So that if the roof leaked or the winter came hard, she could meet it with her own two hands and a calm face. What she keeps is peace of mind. The Japanese call it anshin, a heart that is safe. What she refuses is the cold arithmetic of fear that wakes a person at 3 a.m. And here, the science is not gentle. It is grave, and it matters. Researchers followed more than 700 women aged 70 to 79, and they found that the women who lived with a feeling of financial strain, the gnawing sense that there might not be enough, were far more likely to die within 5 years than the women who felt secure. Now listen closely, because this is the part the banks will never tell you. It was not the size of the bank account that protected them. The danger held even after the researchers set actual income aside. It was the feeling. The fear itself was the weight on the body. That is why Yasuko-san's little tin mattered so much. It was never about the amount inside it. It was about the fear it kept out. A little, put by, quietly, is not greed. It is a gift you give your own heart. The gift of a night without dread. And it may be one of the kindest things you ever do for the years you have left. The sixth thing they keep is the habit of giving a little away. Even those with almost nothing keep something back, not for themselves, but for someone else. A coin for a grandchild, a dish carried to a neighbor, a note tucked where it is needed. This one I keep myself every week. I set aside one modest coin that is not mine to keep. From the start, it belongs to someone else. Some weeks, it buys sweets for a child. Some weeks, it slides under the door of a house where things are hard. It is the smallest line in my week. It is also, I have come to believe, the most important. What they keep is the open hand. The Japanese word is omoyari, to feel towards another, to think of them before yourself. What they refuse is the clenched fist that believes safety lies only in holding on. And the strange thing, the thing researchers found when they tested it, is that people given a little money and told to spend it on someone else ended the day happier than those told to spend it on themselves. It is an effect that has held gently in much larger studies since. The hand that gives is the hand that is least afraid. A purse that only ever closes grows heavy. A purse that opens, even a little, stays light. Give one small thing away this week. Not what is left over, but something chosen. And notice that you do not feel poorer for it. And now, the seventh. I told you at the very beginning that the seventh was not a habit you do with your hands, that it was one word, a way of seeing money, and that once you held it, the other six would settle into place. Here it is. The seventh thing they keep is the knowledge of when they have enough, not more than enough. Enough. The steadying certainty that what they have is sufficient for the life they actually live. And the word, the one I have carried this whole way to give you, is taru wo shiru, to know what is enough. There is an old stone basin at a temple in Kyoto. Worn smooth by centuries of water and carved around it is a single teaching. I already have all I need. That is taru wo shiru. It is the still point beneath all six habits you have just heard. Look back and you will see it everywhere. The little book that watches the money, that was taru wo shiru. The thing used to its last good day, taru wo shiru. The coin spent on the gathering, not the shelf, taru wo shiru. The hour bought back to breathe, taru wo shiru. The cushion that keeps out the fear, taru wo shiru. The little given away, taru wo shiru. Everyone was a way of saying, I have enough, and here is what it finally reveals. The real fortune was never the money at all. It was the knowing. Those who have studied this find that the people who lean least on having more tend to carry a little more contentment than those who can never feel they have enough. These women are calm at 90, not because their purses are full, but because their wanting is quiet. They decided long ago that what they had was enough. And a heart that has enough is a heart finally free to rest. So it comes to one sentence in the end. Wealth is not having a great deal. It is needing very little and knowing with a settled heart that you already do. So let us gather them in a single breath. The little book that sees the money, the thing used to its very end, the coin spent on the gathering, not the shelf, the hour bought back to breathe, the cushion that keeps fear from the table, the little given away with an open hand, and beneath all six, the one quiet knowing that names them, that what you have is already enough. Taru wo shiru. Before you go, I would ask you one thing. Of the 6 habits, one will have landed more softly than the rest. One you felt in your chest as I spoke it. Leave me the number, down below. Just the number. 1 through 6, nothing more, unless you wish to. I read them, everyone, I ask, for 2 reasons. The first, it helps me know which of these calm truths to bring you more of. The second, and the truer one, when you leave your number, some woman scrolling tonight, tired and carrying a knot she cannot name, will see that she is not alone in it. Your one number becomes company for a stranger. And if there is a woman in your life who lies awake doing the arithmetic of fear, send this to her gently, not as advice, as a hand on the shoulder. Take only one of the habits this week. Only one. There is no rush here. There never was. Be gentle with yourself and with what passes through your hands. I will be here when you return.